Admiral Kral'thax's upper lip curled in disgust as he watched the primitive recruitment video from Earth for the 13th time. His iridescent scales shifted from their usual calm blue to an agitated purple as the footage showed humans celebrating their first successful jump drive test. Pathetic. "Computer, pause playback," he commanded, his voice carrying the musical undertones typical of his species. The holographic display froze on an image of a human pilot grinning with what they probably thought was confidence. "Computer, magnify subject's biological readings." The display zoomed in, showing the fragile skeleton, the inefficient single heart, and the laughably vulnerable skin. These creatures were applying to join the Galactic Fleet Academy, the most prestigious military institution in the known universe. The Admiral's assistant, Lieutenant Prejudice, entered his office with perfect timing. Her crystalline form caught the starlight streaming through the viewport, creating small rainbows across the polished floor of the Academy's administrative tower. "Sir, the Council is requesting your final decision on the human applications," she chimed, her voice like wind through crystal caves. Kral'thax rose from his hovering chair, his 7-foot frame impressive, even by Drachnid standards. "Tell me, Lieutenant, what do you see when you look at these humans?" Prejudice moved closer to the display, her faceted head tilting in consideration. "Honestly, sir, I see meat in a pressure suit." Precisely, Kral'thax laughed, the sound reminiscent of thunder rolling through metal canyons. Yet here they are, barely a century after achieving spaceflight, thinking they can join the ranks of pilots who have evolved specifically for space combat. He gestured expansively at the window, where the magnificent Galactic Fleet Academy sprawled across an artificial ring world. Training vessels darted between the spires like graceful predatory birds, their pilots representing the apex of 6,000 years of selective breeding and genetic engineering. "Did you know," he continued, warming to his favorite subject, "that humans still rely on chemical stimulants to maintain alertness? Coffee, they call it. They literally poison themselves to stay awake." Prejudice's crystalline form vibrated with amusement. "The Council will be relieved to hear your position, Admiral. Shall I prepare the standard rejection templates?" "No," Kral'thax said, his scales shifting to a contemplative green. "Let them in." Prejudice's crystalline structure briefly clouded with confusion. "Sir." "Let them in," he repeated, mandibles clicking with barely suppressed mirth. "Let them see firsthand how far behind they truly are. Let them witness real pilots at work. Nothing will discourage their ridiculous spacefaring ambitions more effectively than watching their best and brightest fail spectacularly in comparison to our natural superiority." He turned back to the frozen image of the grinning human. "Besides, the entertainment value alone will be worth the minor inconvenience of their presence. Can you imagine? A species that still needs to breathe oxygen, trying to compete with pilots who can survive in hard vacuum." "Brilliant strategy," Sir Prejudice chimed appreciatively. "Shall I arrange for their quarters in the low-gravity section, since they're so fragile?" "Oh no," Kral'thax purred, his scales rippling with malicious delight. "Give them standard accommodations. Let them struggle with every aspect of Academy life. After all, we wouldn't want to be accused of not giving them a fair chance, would we?" Their laughter echoed through the office, a symphony of thunderous rumbles and crystalline chimes, while outside, the first human transport ships appeared at the edge of the system. Carrying their precious cargo of dreams about to be shattered, Maya Rodriguez stood before the floor-to-ceiling mirror in her quarters, adjusting the collar of her new Galactic Fleet Academy uniform. The smart fabric adjusted itself automatically, but something still felt off. Maybe it was the weight of being the first human to wear it, or perhaps it was the memory of her mother's last words before she boarded the transport. "Show them what Earth gravity does to a pilot," Isabella Rodriguez had said, her weathered hands straightening Maya's civilian jacket one last time. "They think their artificial gravity makes them special? Ha, try growing up in 1.25 G like we did in the Mexico City Dome." The memory brought a smile to Maya's face as she checked her regulation boots one final time. At 22, she carried her mother's legacy in more ways than one, from the sharp angle of her jaw to the stubborn set of her shoulders. Isabella Rodriguez hadn't just been any test pilot, she'd been the first human to successfully execute a blind quantum leap, trusting nothing but instinct and mathematics to emerge safely on the other side. "Attention, human student Rodriguez," the room's AI announced in what it probably thought was a helpful tone. Your elevated heart rate suggests anxiety. Shall I dispense a calming agent? Negative, Maya replied, suppressing a laugh. That's just good old-fashioned adrenaline. Natural human chemistry at work. She grabbed her datapad and stepped into the corridor, immediately drawing stares from her alien classmates. A serpentine Esrathi pilot nearly tied himself in a knot trying to avoid brushing against her. A group of crystalline Preek students deliberately shattered and reformed their bodies to move further away, their shapes expressing obvious disgust. Oh, look, a voice boomed from behind her. The primate remembered which end of the uniform goes up. Maya turned to face a towering Drachnid student, his scales a particularly smug shade of orange. She recognized him from the orientation briefing, some commander's son named Vex'thor. Actually, she replied with her mother's favorite smirk, I just followed the instructions in small words. You know, the ones they added specially for the Drachnid students. The corridor went deadly quiet. Vex'thor's scales rippled through several colors before settling on an angry red. You dare. Sure do, sunshine. Now, if you'll excuse me, some of us have to actually earn our place here. She strode past him, channeling every ounce of confidence her mother had instilled in her during those long nights practicing in the simulator pod back home. Behind her, she heard Vex'thor sputtering about reporting her to his father, but she kept walking. The Academy's massive training hall opened up before her, a cathedral-like space filled with the most advanced flight simulators in known space. Maya's heart skipped a beat at the sight of them. These weren't the retrofitted human tech she'd trained on. These were the real deal, the same ones that had produced the greatest pilots in the galaxy. Your assigned simulator is not in this section. Human a crystalline Preek's instructor chimed disapprovingly. The modified units for less advanced species are in the auxiliary training room. Maya pulled up her assignment on her datapad, making sure to display it clearly. Actually, sir, I'm assigned to Pod 7. Advanced track. The Preek's instructor's crystalline form clouded with confusion. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Maya said, her mother's words echoing in her mind. Check the qualification scores. I believe I placed third in the entrance exams, right behind Commander Vex'thor and ahead of about 300 other applicants. She didn't wait for a response, walking straight to Pod 7 like she belonged there, because she did belong there, no matter what anyone thought. Isabella Rodriguez hadn't raised her daughter to wait for permission to be extraordinary. As the pod's canopy closed around her, Maya whispered her mother's favorite phrase, the one that had carried them both through countless impossible situations. Gravity is just a suggestion. Fear is just an opinion. And the sky. The sky belongs to those brave enough to claim it. The simulation pod hummed to life around Maya, its neural interface attempting to sync with her biology. A warning flashed across her display. Caution, non-standard nervous system detected. Having trouble with the equipment already, Human Commander Vex'thor's voice crackled through the comm. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable with something more primitive? I hear we have some ancient hydraulic simulators in storage. Maya ignored him, focusing instead on the calibration sequence. The pod's AI was designed for beings with more advanced neural structures, but she'd studied its protocols extensively. Run interface diagnostic Alpha 7, adjust for mammalian response times, and compensate for human adrenal function, she commanded. Unprecedented configuration, the pod replied. Warning, performance will be suboptimal. Story of my life, Maya muttered. Execute anyway. The virtual starfield blazed to life around her. Today's training scenario: high-speed navigation through an asteroid field while under fire. Standard stuff, except Commander Vex'thor had thoughtfully cranked up the difficulty to maximum. Begin sequence, the instructor announced. Remember, this is about precision and control. One hit means failure. The simulation lurched into motion. Maya watched as her classmates launched forward in traditional attack patterns, their ships flowing through space with practiced grace. Vex'thor, naturally, took the lead, his vessel dancing between asteroids like a leaf on the wind. Then Maya did something that made everyone stop and stare. She killed her engines. Rodriguez has lost power, someone called out. Negative, Maya responded calmly. I'm using what Earth pilots call gravity assist maneuvers. She let her ship fall into the asteroid field's gravitational web, using the massive rock's own pull to sling her forward. While others fought against the chaos of space, she embraced it, turning every potential collision into an opportunity for acceleration. Impossible, Vex'thor snarled as Maya's ship whipped past his, riding the gravitational waves like a surfer on Earth's oceans. She's not even using standard flight patterns. Because standard patterns assume standard thinking, came a musical voice over the comm. And there's nothing standard about this flying. Maya's display identified the speaker as Zara'leth, a Luminoth pilot she'd noticed during orientation. Unlike the crystalline priests, Luminoth were beings of pure energy contained within specialized flight suits, capable of perceiving multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Watch your position," Luminoth Vex'thor warned. "Supporting this primitive could damage your standing." "My standing," Zara'leth's voice chimed with amusement. "I'm watching a human pilot turn our most basic assumptions about spaceflight into abstract art. My standing is exactly where I want it to be, right here watching history unfold." Maya grinned as she initiated her final approach. The simulation's targeting computer was fast, but human reflexes evolved to catch prey and dodge predators had their own advantages. She didn't try to predict where the asteroids would be, she felt where they were going. "Training sequence complete," the pod announced. "New course record established. Pilot Rodriguez 0 impacts, minimum energy expenditure, maximum efficiency rating." The virtual starfield faded, revealing a training hall gone eerily quiet. Maya popped her pod's canopy to find every alien eye, sensor cluster, and energy tendril fixed on her. Vex'thor's scales had turned an interesting shade of puce. "A fluke," he declared, mandibles clicking furiously. The human got lucky. Anyone can look good in a simulation. Then perhaps, Zara'leth suggested, her energy form pulsing with mischievous light as she floated from her pod. "You wouldn't mind demonstrating your superior skills in a real ship. Say tomorrow, on the practical training course." "I accept," Vex'thor snapped before Maya could respond. "When the human fails, it will prove once and for all that some species simply don't belong in space." As the other pilots filed out, Zara'leth drifted over to Maya's pod. "Hope you don't mind me volunteering you for a deathmatch," she chimed. But someone needed to crack that Drachnid's exoskeleton of superiority. Maya found herself grinning at the energy being. "My mother always said the best way to handle bullies is to beat them at their own game. I'm Maya Rodriguez." "I know," Zara'leth pulsed warmly. "The whole academy's talking about the human who flies like she was born in 0G. Want to grab some sustenance? I know a place that serves both plasma drinks and that bitter bean water you humans love." "Coffee," Maya laughed. "It's called coffee. And yes, I'd like that very much. The 2847th Annual Galactic Fleet Championship will commence in 3 standard cycles," Admiral Kral'thax announced to the assembled academy. His scales gleamed with official importance as his image was projected across the grand amphitheater. "This year's competition will feature a special bracket for non-traditional candidates." Maya felt hundreds of alien eyes turned toward her. The only human in the room. The only human in the academy's history. "How thoughtful," Zara'leth whispered, her energy form flickering with sarcasm. "They made a special category just for you." "Not happening," Maya announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'll compete in the main bracket." Admiral Kral'thax's scales shifted to a condescending purple. "Ms. Rodriguez, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, the standard competition might be too intense for your species' limitations." With respect, Admiral Maya stood, channeling every ounce of her mother's confidence. "I didn't come here to be a novelty. I came to be a pilot. Either I compete with everyone else, or I don't compete at all." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Vex'thor's laugh cut through the noise. "Let her try. When she fails the qualifying rounds, it will save us all the embarrassment of watching a human attempt real combat maneuvers." The qualifying rounds began the next day. Each pilot had to complete 3 challenges: precision navigation, combat simulation, and emergency response. Maya was scheduled last, giving her plenty of time to watch her competitors. Vex'thor's performance was impressive, she had to admit. His ship moved like an extension of his body, executing perfect textbook maneuvers with devastating efficiency. The crowd roared as he set a new qualification record. When Maya's turn came, she approached things differently. During the precision navigation, instead of following the designated course markers, she plotted a route through the debris field that looked like pure chaos on the monitors, but actually used minimal energy. "Disqualify her," someone shouted. "She's not following the approved flight patterns." "There's no rule stating pilots must follow traditional routes," Zara'leth called back. "Check the regulations." The combat simulation was next. While others engaged in elegant dogfights, Maya treated space like an ocean, diving through debris fields, using larger objects as shields, and letting momentum do the work for her. Her shots weren't the most accurate, but her unpredictable movement patterns kept her untouchable. "She fights like a primitive Vex'thor," protested. "She fights like someone who knows battle isn't about looking pretty," Zara'leth countered. The emergency response test was supposed to be impossible, a no-win scenario designed to test decision-making under pressure. Maya took one look at the setup and laughed. "Something amusing?" human Admiral Kral'thax asked. "Just remembering something my mother taught me," Maya replied. "The best way to handle an impossible situation is to change the rules of engagement." What followed was 3 minutes of the most unorthodox flying the Academy had ever witnessed. Maya didn't try to save the damaged ship in the simulation. She used it as a makeshift weapon, deliberately overloading its systems to create a chain reaction that cleared a safe path for the civilian vessels. "That's not how the scenario was meant to be solved," the testing official protested. "But she did save all the civilians," Zara'leth pointed out, "with 0 casualties." The final rankings were posted that evening. Maya had qualified second, just behind Vex'thor. The Drachnid commander's scales turned almost black with rage. "This isn't over, human," he hissed as he passed her in the corridor. "The real competition is about to begin. And I promise you, you'll regret not taking the Admiral's offer of a separate bracket." Maya watched him go, then turned to Zara'leth. "Time to hit the simulators." "After you," human, her friend chimed. "Show me more of those primitive tactics that have everyone so rattled." The Academy's training hall was eerily quiet at 03:00 hours. Maya sat cross-legged in Simulator Pod 7, her mother's voice playing through her personal comm unit. "Remember," Amor Isabella's recording crackled, "space doesn't care about elegant maneuvers or perfect form. Space only respects one thing: survival." Maya adjusted the simulator's settings, programming a scenario her mother had drilled into her countless times. The Coriolis spiral, a maneuver so counterintuitive that most pilots dismissed it as suicide. "Your greatest advantage," the recording continued, "is that they expect you to think like them. But you're not them, you're human. You come from a world that tried to kill us every day, where we learned to turn disadvantages into weapons." A soft chime interrupted her concentration. "Warning, unauthorized access detected Simulator 7 primary systems." Maya's fingers flew across the control panel, pulling up diagnostic screens. Someone was trying to modify her simulator's safety protocols. She traced the signal to a maintenance panel 3 levels down. "Computer, activate internal camera feed. Sector C12, she commanded. The screen showed 3 Drachnid students huddled around an access terminal, their scales dark for stealth. Maya recognized them as Vex'thor's regular training partners. "Just fry the reaction compensators," one whispered. "Make it look like system fatigue when she tries that crazy spinning move tomorrow." "Going somewhere," Zara'leth's voice rang out, her energy form suddenly illuminating the dark corridor. The Drachnids jumped, one actually shedding scales in surprise. Maya grabbed her datapad and sprinted for the maintenance level. By the time she arrived, Zara'leth had the situation well in hand, her energy field containing the would-be saboteurs. "Let me guess," Maya said, crossing her arms. "Vex'thor put you up to this." "We don't have to explain ourselves to a primitive," the lead Drachnid spat. "No explanation needed," Zara'leth chimed. "The maintenance logs show exactly what they were attempting. Shall we alert Academy security?" Maya studied the Drachnids, remembering another of her mother's lessons. The best revenge isn't winning, Amor. It's making them live with the knowledge that you could have destroyed them but chose not to. "Let them go," Maya decided. "What?" the Drachnids and Zara'leth asked simultaneously. "But tell Vex'thor something for me," Maya continued, stepping close to the lead saboteur. "Tell him that tomorrow, when I outfly him using nothing but skill and the simulator he tried to sabotage, he'll have to live with knowing he couldn't beat a primitive even by cheating." After they scurried away, Zara'leth dimmed her glow to a concerned purple. "You're taking a risk." they might try again. Maya pulled up her mother's image on her datapad, a snapshot from her last test flight. My mother always said that being underestimated is an advantage. Let them think I'm being naive. Tomorrow, they'll learn what a cornered human is really capable of. She headed back to the simulator, her mother's voice still playing in her ears. Show them what Earth gravity breeds, Mayamor. Show them what it means to be a Deathworlder. The championship arena sprawled across an entire asteroid belt, transformed by Academy engineers into the most challenging combat course ever designed. Massive holograms displayed the competitors' ships to the thousands of spectators gathered in shielded observation vessels. First round, the announcement boomed. 8 pilots enter, 4 advance. Weapons systems set to competition level. Combat zone extends from sectors Alpha through Delta. Maya's hands danced across her controls, running last-minute checks. Her ship, a standard Academy Striker-class vessel, hummed with barely contained power. They'd given all pilots identical ships to ensure fairness, but Maya had spent the night reprogramming her navigational systems to account for human reaction times. Commence combat sequence in 3, 2, 1. The starting pulse hadn't even faded before Vex'thor and his wingmates rocketed forward in perfect formation. Their coordinated attack patterns filled space with practice-perfect maneuvers, forcing the other pilots to scatter. Maya went straight up, relative to the combat zone's designated plane. Most species thought in 2 dimensions, even in space, but humans had learned to dogfight in Earth's atmosphere, where up and down were just suggestions. Rodriguez appears to be retreating, the announcer declared. An early show of human limitations. Maya's ship spiraled higher, appearing to flee. 3 competitors took the bait, following her up. Perfect. Now, let's show them what Earth pilots call a split S, Maya muttered. She cut power to her main engines and fired her ventral thrusters, throwing her ship into a maneuver that would have turned a planetary fighter into a fireball. In space, with no air resistance, it became something else entirely. Her ship flipped end over end, maintaining its upward momentum while its weapons now pointed directly at her pursuers. Before they could process what had happened, Maya's targeting computer registered 3 solid hits. Incredible, the announcer shouted. Rodriguez eliminates 3 competitors with a maneuver that defies standard combat doctrine. But Maya wasn't done. She let the flip's momentum carry her ship into a controlled tumble, using Earth aerobatics in ways they were never meant to be used. In atmosphere, these moves would tear a ship apart. In space, they became an art form. That's not possible, one of the eliminated pilots protested. Her inertial dampeners should have failed. Only if you rely on them, Maya replied through the comm. Sometimes you have to work with the forces trying to kill you instead of fighting them. Vex'thor's wing pair broke formation, trying to catch her in a pincer movement. Maya recognized the textbook tactic, exactly what the Academy taught for dealing with unconventional pilots. She smiled. Time to show them a hurricane dodge, she said, remembering her mother's lessons about flying through Mexico City's massive storms. Maya killed her forward momentum and fired thrusters in alternating patterns, making her ship move like debris caught in a wind gust. The maneuver looked chaotic, almost random, but each tumble brought her weapons to bear for a fraction of a second. Warning shots grazed both attackers' shields, not enough to eliminate them, but enough to make them hesitate. That split second of uncertainty was all she needed. Maya redirected power from her shields to her engines, another move the Academy considered suicide. Her ship surged forward with acceleration that would have blackened out any pilot relying on technological protection against G-forces. But humans had evolved on a heavy world, and Maya had trained her whole life for this. Double elimination, the announcer screamed as Maya's shots found their marks. Rodriguez advances to the finals with an unprecedented display of, what are we even calling these tactics? We call it flying dirty, Maya transmitted back, allowing herself a grin. When your homeworld has hurricanes, earthquakes, and atmospheric conditions that eat ships for breakfast, you learn to get creative. The observation ships erupted in a mixture of cheers and outraged protests. Maya caught sight of Admiral Kral'thax's face on one of the holograms, his scales cycling through colors she didn't even know drachnids could produce. Only Vex'thor remained, his ship hovering at the edge of the combat zone. His voice came across the comm, cold and precise. Congratulations, human. You've earned the right to face me in the finals. I look forward to showing everyone the difference between your primitive stunts and real space combat." Maya turned her ship to face him, running her hand along the control panel that had become more familiar than her own heartbeat. "Looking forward to it, Commander. Let's give them a show they'll never forget." The finals arena was stripped bare, no asteroids or debris fields to hide behind, just two ships and the infinite canvas of space. Final round parameters locked, the computer announced. Standard victory conditions apply. Begin on signal. Maya watched Vex'thor's ship, a mirror image of her own, hovering 1,000 meters away. His voice crackled through the comm. "No tricks here, human. No convenient rocks to hide behind, just pure skill. Commencing final round in 3, 2, 1. Vex'thor's ship launched forward in a perfect attack vector, his approach speed pushing the Academy vessel's limits. But Maya held her position, letting him come to her. "What's wrong, primitive?" Afraid to attack. Maya remembered her mother's words about dogfighting. The most dangerous predator isn't the one charging at you. It's the one waiting for you to make a mistake. At the last possible moment, Maya fired her maneuvering thrusters in a sequence that made no sense to anyone watching. Her ship spun laterally while maintaining its position, presenting constantly shifting target angles. "Stop dancing and fight," Vex'thor snarled, his shots passing through empty space where Maya's ship should have been. "This is fighting," Maya replied calmly. "Ask any Earth hummingbird." She let her ship's rotation carry her through a series of micro-adjustments, each one bringing her weapons to bear for a fraction of a second. Not enough for killing shots, but enough to force Vex'thor to constantly adjust his shields. "You can't win a battle on glancing blows, human." "No," Maya agreed. "But I can win it on fuel efficiency." Vex'thor's next barrage of attacks burned through his maneuvering fuel as he tried to predict her movement patterns. But there was no pattern. Maya was flying like a leaf in a storm, letting physics do the work while Vex'thor fought against it. "Time to show them a little Grand Canyon maneuver," Maya whispered. She cut all power to her engines, letting momentum carry her ship into a flat spin that would have been fatal in atmosphere. Vex'thor took the bait, swooping in for what looked like an easy kill. At the last second, Maya fired all thrusters simultaneously, using the spin's centrifugal force to multiply her turning radius beyond what the ship's specifications claimed was possible. Her targeting computer locked on. One shot. Clean. Perfect. Warning lights blazed across Vex'thor's cockpit as his primary systems went dark. "Victory confirmed," the computer announced. "Champion Maya Rodriguez." The observation ships exploded with sound as Maya's name flashed across every holographic display. She looked up to see Admiral Kral'thax's scales had turned pure white, a color she'd never seen before. How Vex'thor demanded, "How did a primitive?" "Because Earth taught me that space isn't your enemy," Maya answered. "It's just another force of nature. And nature doesn't care about superiority. It only respects those who learn to dance with it." The Academy's Grand Hall had never been so quiet during a victory ceremony. Maya stood at attention, her human height dwarfed by the towering aliens around her, but somehow she seemed to fill the space with her presence alone. Admiral Kral'thax approached the podium, his scales shifting through a complex pattern of colors before settling on a deep, respectful blue. Today, he announced, "I must begin with an admission of error." The assembled crowds murmured in surprise. Drachnid admirals never admitted mistakes. "We looked at humanity and saw limitations. We saw their need for atmospheric pressure, their reliance on gravity, their shorter lifespans, and we called them primitive." He turned to face Maya directly. "We failed to see how these very challenges shaped them into something extraordinary." Zara'leth's energy form pulsed with pride from her position among the honor guard. Even Vex'thor, standing rigidly with the other finalists, had his scales set in a pattern that showed grudging respect. Champion Rodriguez, Kral'thax continued, has not just won a competition. She has opened our eyes to a fundamental truth. True space superiority isn't about natural advantages. It's about learning to turn every disadvantage into strength. He lifted the ceremonial wings of victory, a shimming set of pins crafted from pure stellar energy. "Maya Rodriguez, on behalf of the Galactic Fleet Academy, I present you with these wings, and with them, an invitation. We would be honored if you would consider joining our teaching staff to show us how humanity fights." Maya accepted the wings with steady hands, thinking of her mother watching the broadcast back on Earth. "Thank you, Admiral, but I have a counter-proposal." She turned to address the crowd. "Let's open the Academy's doors wider. Earth has millions of pilots, each with their own impossible stories of survival. Imagine what we could learn from each other." The applause started with Zara'leth and spread like a wave through the hall. As Maya looked out at the sea of alien faces, she saw something new in their expressions: not tolerance, not acceptance, but genuine anticipation of what humanity would show them.